And what's the operating hours here for the Greyhound Grill?
Yeah, so we open up at 11 in the morning, except for Sunday at 10, and then we close at 9.
And your name is?
My name's Danny.
Danny, and if someone makes to make a reservation, where would they call you?
Oh, sure. Just give us a call on our number here. Which you're catching me off guard. It's 859-331-3767.
And tell the young man that helped put this all together from Simon Kenton High School. What's his name? The owner?
Well, it's owned by the group of One Holland.
Yep.
Yep.
Well, God bless y'all.
Well, thank you.
Take care now.
You too.
See you later. Travels with Dr. John Stevenson, former Superintendent of Education, Commonwealth of Kentucky. And join us on Facebook and on YouTube under Travels with Dr. John Stevenson. God bless you and have a great day. Class of 1959 Simon Kenton High School. From the class of 1961 Simon Kenton High School. In honor of Mara Day, bless her heart, gone on to heaven.
Every imagination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. Not only his deeds, but he was vile on the inside.
Listening to WIOK 107.5 FM on the radio dial. Gil Hammond and Jan Hammond, 32 years of gospel and good Christian music.
God reads the heart.
Post Office Box 50, Falmouth, Kentucky, 41040 zip code.
And it grieved him at his heart. Now God is not taken by surprise.
Passing through the city of Fort Mitchell, where I built two beautiful homes. One at 127 Seville Court, and the other one at 213 Beechwood Road. Lived here many years. Wonderful place to live. And a wonderful church there, Fort Mitchell Baptist Church. Very great church. Good people. That's where the prayer breakfast was started. In 1975 for men. I and Gil Hammond were in that first group in the early years, the starting of the prayer breakfast, or men's prayer breakfast, which goes on now over at Lakeside Christian Church. Beautiful. Starts every morning at 6:30 to 7:30 sharp. The men fix the breakfast.
And the Lord said,
right down there's Beechwood High School, where I taught for a little while and did some substitute teaching, and Gil taught. Gil Hammond taught for 10 years there.
Me that I've made them.
Great school.
What a terrible, terrible resolution.
Up here's where June and I will be buried.
I believe
Lee Harkey, or not Lee, but Wayne Harkey, we buried his wife there at St. Mary's, and here at Highland Cemetery is where June and I will be buried. We got our bench in there back by the little lake on the right.
Had corrupted his way upon the earth. Watch that. They had corrupted his way, which means they knew it and they corrupted it. Romans 1, right? When they knew God, they glorified him not as God, but were foolish, vain in their imaginations, worshiped the creature more than the Creator, turned their backs on God. They corrupted his way. Before you impugn God, remember that God gave them every chance. Every chance. But they went their own way. The shortest definition of sin in the world is 2 words. I will. And man went his own way. Verse 13. And God said unto Noah, the end of all flesh is come before me, for the earth is filled with violence through them, and behold, I will destroy them with the earth. I'm going to wipe this thing out, God says. They've all gone their own way. Isaiah 53:6. All we like sheep have what? Gone astray, and we've turned every man, where? To his own way. The world was rotten. And God said, I'm going to judge it. You know, throughout the Bible, Bible, we find God telling his special people, his chosen people, about coming judgment. Amos 3:7 is a wonderful verse. It says this, surely the Lord does nothing without revealing his secrets to his servants, the prophets. God inevitably would tell somebody that it was coming. A gentle and yet a forceful kind of reminder and warning. You say, well, it still appears to me that God is awfully tough to just come down and wipe out the whole world. I mean, it seems a little bit like that's his justice is all of a sudden overwhelming. But it isn't so. Listen to this. The fact that God's time of patience will end, and that he will strike out injustice, is the only hope for a sin-cursed world, you see? If God doesn't act to destroy, then we face an eternity of sinfulness. People say, well, how could God come in judgment? How could Jesus come in judgment? My friends, that's my hope. It's my hope that sin gets judged. I don't want to live in a world eternally sinful and vile.
No, I don't either.
I want the world that Jesus Christ has promised.
And we will have.
God is holy and just. Thus he
Be
will
patient.
destroy. For me, he has already destroyed my sin in Christ. But don't you ever think for a minute that there isn't mercy and grace in destruction and judgment. There is. Barnhouse said, and I quote, hell is as much a part of the love story of God as heaven is. I don't want to live in a continual earth of sinfulness. But God's judgment is so slow. He's so patient. Watch this. This is a point that just thrills me. Look at verse 21 of chapter 5. And Enoch lived 65 years, just a kid. And he begot Methuselah, his son. That's great. Now you say, what's the significance of Methuselah? Well, his name is significant. Listen to this. His name means, when he is dead, it shall be sent. Hang on to that one. That's worth at least a quarter. When he is dead, it shall be sent. Well, isn't that an interesting thing to name your son? When he is dead, it shall be sent. In that name is divine revelation. It was as though God said to Enoch, you see that baby Enoch? That baby you just had? The world will last as long as he lives. Are you with me?
Are you ready?
The world will last as long as he lives. For
Are you ready
when
for
he is
Jesus?
dead, then it shall be sent. What shall? The great deluge and destruction that came. So the world was to last as long as the son of Enoch lived. 1 Peter 3:10 says this, 3:20 says, the long-suffering of God waited in the days of Noah. What was God waiting for? He's waiting for Methuselah to die. And God said, I'm not going to send judgment by the very name of Methuselah until he dies. How long did Methuselah live? Longer than any man in the world ever lived. Does that tell you a little bit about God's grace? Does it? 969 years. Now, before you impugn the justice of God, look again. He was so merciful. It should impress us to know his grace is that way. What an exhibition of mercy. He waited almost 1,000 years for men to change. They only went further and further and further away. You see, and God knows when a man crosses the line, doesn't he? God knows that. You see, but they never had a chance to know the truth. Oh, yes, they did. Romans 1:19 says in verse 20 also that there's enough knowledge of God in a man. There's enough knowledge of God from the visible creation so that every man is without what? Excuse. They had the revelation of a Redeemer in Genesis 3:15, the promised seed of the woman to bruise the serpent's head. The institution of the expiatory sacrifice as the way to approach God was already given from Abel on. They knew how to come to God. The mark of Cain placed on Cain was a constant reminder of what God thought about sin. Adam lived 930 years himself and spent perhaps most of that telling men the truth about what sin brought to him. The preaching of Enoch was warning. The preaching of Noah was warning. Genesis chapter 6 verse 3 tells us the Spirit was striving with men. Don't tell me they didn't know they
Praise the Lord. When he's ready to come back, we'll be ready for him.
And reject it.
And this is one of our speakers today, and her name is Will Ann Stengel, right?
Correct.
And that's spelled Stangel.
Yes, it is.
And what are we going to talk about today?
I believe we're going to talk about my candidacy for state representative in District 69.
Well, who are you running against?
I'm running against Stephen Doan.
Stephen Doan?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that'll be a tough race, but you'll be in there.
It will.
He's a good man, you know, but I'm sure you're a good lady. We'll listen to what
I
you
like
have.
to think I am.
Well, we'll listen and see what you have to say today. God bless you. I'm Travels with John Stevenson on YouTube and Facebook.
It's nice to see you. You might not realize this, but I see you at the Erwin-Grelsmer Historical Society meetings.
Yes, right. I'm
I'm
out
also
there.
a member there.
Oh, well, wonderful. Well, I speak out there to them and sing every once in a while.
Yes, you sang just the meeting before last.
Yeah.
I was there.
Well, God bless you.
It's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, too.
Informally.
Yes, right. And I hope you wish you well giving your speech today. I'll be writing you one question, and you know what that is?
What's that?
Are you ready? You know what "Are you ready" means? Are you ready for Jesus?
I've heard that my whole life.
So you might see a little question up there where I write one for you, if they give it to you.
Okay.
Thank you now.
All right.
They're looking better now. Killing the other side.
Now we have back here, well, I'm filming you because you're training this young man. And you're training him with excellence because, young man, this gentleman here is a superb technology person. And we think the world of him. And even though I'm filming him a little bit, grabbing a quick nourishment, he needs to have that so he can oversee what you're doing when you're filming. God bless both of you. And he's trying to find a film for me down there, but he's awfully busy, but he's still looking because I did the very first show on public access called How to Weatherize Your Home in 1982. The very first one. We won a national award with it too. God bless you and have a nice day. What's your name, young man? What? Spell that real loud. Iver. Oliver. Nice to meet you. God bless you.
Who wrote today that they had
He was missing a tooth last year.
who said today they can't come because they have a tooth?
I'm going over for my salad.
Okay.
I'm hungry.
Coco.
Oh, Coco.
Ladies and gentlemen, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Sounds good, doesn't it? I can also do some imitations, but we'll move right along. For those of you who are new to us, which we have two speakers today that are new to us, we always start out with our optimistic pledge, which you see posted behind me. Before that, before we start out, we have a word of prayer by our friend John, and then we do the Pledge of Allegiance, which you see the flag posted to my left, which would be your right. So, John, if you would be so kind.
Join me with our Father prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever and ever. Amen. Remember always, it's the Holy Spirit's job to convict, it's God's job to judge, it's our job to love. And we love all you.
Promise yourself to be
So strong that nothing can disturb your peace of mind. To talk health, happiness, and prosperity to every person you meet.
To make all your friends feel that there's something in them.
Look at the
Look
sunny side of
of everything and make your options come true. Think only of the best, to work only for the best, and to expect only the best. To be just as enthusiastic about the success of others as you are about your own.
To forget the mistakes of the past, and press on to greater achievements of the future. To wear a cheerful countenance at all times,
and give every living creature your immediate smile. To give so much time to improvement of yourself, and to have time to assist others. To be large for worry, noble for anger, too strong for fear, too happy for the presence of trouble. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. God bless America.
I will now wish each and every one of you a very happy and prosperous Wednesday. My name is Eddie Shelton, and I'm with the Optimist Club of Cumberland, Kentucky. We meet every Wednesday at 12 noon here at Pee Wee's Place, 2325 Anderson Road, Crescent Springs, Kentucky. For our TBNK viewers, today is Wednesday, the 21st of August. And for everybody else, today is also Wednesday, the 21st of August. Today's presentation is videotape and broadcast on Spectrum Channel 203, Alta Fiber, and Channel 815, Thursdays at 8 p.m. Rebroadcast on TBNK Telecommunications Board of Northern Kentucky. Stay tuned with TBNK to go, on demand TBNK Facebook, and Optimist Facebook. James Morlock, Program Director, Editor, Camera makes our rebroadcast of Optimist Club possible. And thank you. And you have a guest with you today, sir.
Yes, sir.
And what is your guest's name?
I'm Oliver. I'm an intern at TBNK. Started last week.
Good luck to you, sir. You're under a good tutelage.
He's gonna need it.
Amen. Amen.
We have two speakers today. The first is Will-Ann Stengel. And Will-Ann has requested that she give her own bio, if I'm correct.
Ellie said that.
Oh, Ellie said that.
Yeah, I can do it too if you'd like.
Would you like to read your own bio?
Sure.
Because I think it's very nice to hear from the person that did all those wonderful things.
Well,
Please, come up here.
okay.
We have two microphones here, makes it look like a network.
Well, my name is Will-Ann Stengel. I am a candidate for state representative in District 69, which is Erlanger, Ellesmere, and part of Florence. And I am a lifelong resident of Erlanger. I have raised 3 children in Erlanger. I have a couple of grandchildren now in Erlanger. I am a former school librarian and a public county librarian. Worked in public schools and private schools. And I'm a parent of a child with special needs who is now an adult. And it gives me a very interesting perspective on a lot of things. So I have my original college degree is in industrial management and production supervision. But I deviated from that for various reasons and wound up in library sciences. So I'm glad to be here today and I appreciate you all having me. So I gave you the basics. I am running for state representative. I'm running because I have 2 grandchildren. And a lot of the issues that are coming up are directly affecting my grandchildren and directly affecting the world in which I want them to live. So as I said before, I'm a lifelong resident of Erlanger, and Erlanger has been a wonderful community. And it's been a lot of people don't know, it has been a very important community in certain areas, particularly in education. And one of those was that in 1955, 1 year after Brown versus the Board of Education, the Erlanger-Ellesmere schools desegregated, without any agitation whatsoever, as it was described in Look magazine. We have always been a community where we went to school together, we lived together, and we were a congenial community. And that's something that I want to see preserved for my family. And I also want to see good quality education preserved for my family. As I said, I've worked in schools, both public and private, and as a result, I've sent children to both public and private schools. I do know I have a son, like I said before, that has special needs. He's on the autism spectrum. He would never have been welcomed in the private school where I work. Hands down. They couldn't accommodate his needs. They weren't legally required to. It didn't matter if I paid the full tuition for him to go there. He would not have been welcome there. He needed a good quality, fully funded public education to reach his full potential. My other children attend, my one daughter attended private school, 1st through 12th grade. I worked at the school and she was able to go there. And she got a good quality education. My oldest son attended public school, 1st through 12th grade, and he got a good quality education. There were pluses in both, there were minuses in both. But I'm running firmly on the idea that we continue to fully fund public education because it's an economic factor, I think. If we do not have a fully well-trained workforce, which we will not have if we take that much money out of public education, we just won't. And we don't have a good, fully well-educated workforce, we will not be contenders for people to invest in Kentucky. That's just all there is to it. I'm also running on the idea of women's reproductive rights. Once again, it's an economic issue. If women cannot control their reproductive rights, they can't be in the workforce. All of the way the economy is right now, it's very difficult in this area for a single worker to support a family. That's all there is to it. It's you have to have 2 incomes. Our wages are not high enough in this area. And if you can't get child care and you can't control your reproduction, that takes one person out of the workforce, and that makes it very difficult. I also, for very personal reasons, am an advocate for reproductive health care being freely available. I worked for an employer that was able, because of their positions, to manage what kind of medical treatment I received through my health insurance. And I will tell you, I had a very serious medical issue, and the doctors needed to basically be very personal. They needed to tie my tubes, because if I were to have a pregnancy after this surgery, it would be life-threatening for me, hands down. My employer and my insurer would not allow that to happen because it didn't meet their religious things. My doctor over in Ohio refused to do the surgery I needed because he said doing it the way that my employer demanded would endanger my health, my very life, and he would not do it. I had to come over to this side of the river to a different doctor who agreed to she would not do the sterilization part of the procedure because she was not allowed, because her employer would not allow her to do it. She worked for the same employer I did. So she agreed that she would do it, but she would, on the side, give me birth control pills, which I was also not allowed to have from my employer. So I had people actually break the rules to make sure my life was safe for a necessary medical procedure. It had nothing to do with my morals, it had to do with my health. And there are lots of people out there that affects. And any kind of broad rule does not include all the people in there. So that's another issue that I'm definitely running on. And I'm also running on workers' rights. All of these issues I've mentioned before, I think, impact workers' rights and workers' opportunities. We have a poor educational system for in public schools, that affects readiness to work. And that affects the companies that come into our Commonwealth and the opportunities that are going to be there for our workforce. If we have poor health care choices, companies do not want to invest in a state where that's what their employees are going to have to deal with. So it affects us economically. And we've also done some things here recently, or not we, it has been done down in the legislature in Kentucky, about labor laws in general. One of the things that I think is very troubling is they've allowed 14-year-old children can now work up to 30 hours a week during the school week. And they can work in jobs that were previously deemed too hazardous for somebody under the age of 18. Two things. One, that's affecting, once again, the quality of their education and where they're going to go down further. But it's also going to affect our rest of our workforce. If you have a 14-year-old that's willing to work for $10, $12 an hour, and you don't have to give them benefits because they can never legally work 40 hours a week, that's a job taken away from somebody that needs that job. And that affects our workers' rights. So there's a lot of things going on in Kentucky right now, and they all affect us economically, and they affect our well-being, and they affect our families and our futures. And lastly, I'm going to, particularly for this crowd, I see a lot of you around here, and a lot of you look about like me, around the same age, and I will tell you that one of the pledges that is coming out of Frankfurt right now is 600,000 Kentuckians they have earmarked to remove from health care, various aspects of health care. And that would be mostly Medicaid and Medicare patients in our state. I don't know about you, but in my family, we have, my son, who has special needs, receives Medicaid. He's uninsurable privately. I'm getting ready to start taking Medicare. I don't want 600,000 people to include my family, or me, or really anybody in this room. That's been pledged. So we want to make some changes down in Frankfurt, and that's why I'm running. So I appreciate you letting me come, and I will appreciate the motto of your organization. I wouldn't be running if I wasn't optimistic that we can make things better. And sometimes it feels like it's an uphill slog, but if we keep working hard and we get the right people there, I'm very optimistic that we can continue to have things very nice for people in our Commonwealth and take care of our people and give them opportunities they need. So thank you for letting me come.
Thank you, William. We're going to take a short break, and we're going to ask some questions after the short break. Thank you. You have to write your questions down on the cards in front of you. So take some time and write down your questions on these cards, and we'll be right back.
Looks like what I want.
Okay. Where are you going, Derek?
Well, I don't know. I was gonna try and get to.
Put your soup over instead.
Got it?
Nice.
Took the big one.
I got them both
Yeah.
that way.
How you doing, Carl?
Pretty good.
No, you're definitely not pretty.
I don't know about
Did you
that.
bring these over?
Yes, with that.
This too? Yeah.
Can you take it back over there?
I don't know.
Now, are all the new officers here today?
Take it back over there.
Jerry said he wants to talk to you,
Right.
but I don't know if Coop wants to.
Oh, I can put it right here. Incoming.
Careful, Coop.
Coop's writing a book here.
Concentration.
June makes this drink for me. no calories, and no salt.
I know I gotta watch myself. I just,
Thank you, ma'am.
can you pass that? Cool.
Are all the officers here today?
I don't know.
Not all the officers.
Oh, they're not here, all of them aren't here? I was hoping to get a picture of all of them.
You didn't get one last week?
No,
Well, I mean,
I remember
the
I
incoming
had to
officer.
leave early.
Well, John's not here, John Middleton, and,
Somebody might have got a picture. I could ask. But I thought, well, maybe they're all here today. Some of them had to leave early that day. I think John Middleton had to leave early.
oh, okay, because John isn't here today either. And then Coco isn't here, and she,
Well, I'll just wait, we'll get one.
maybe next week, or I don't know.
I think they canceled the meeting in September the 4th.
Because it's Labor Day. It's
My birthday.
What's the actual question?
Actual question, it's gonna break the government. So it's gonna break the government, and the government can't afford it either. So the people can't afford to get it, and the government can't afford to pay it. What do you think?
No, he just gave me one single paper.
Yeah, I mean, is it this one?
No, it's, like, I think, that's last, it's in the meeting down there.
Oh, okay. So you think you'll be able to?
Yeah, I'm thinking it might be, unless she goes back downhill. She's had good days, there's food. This one's lasted longer than anything, and we'll be able to see the gas.
There's a thing we have, it's called
Or how can the retirees afford to pay for it?
citation. It's outstanding number.
Yeah.
Okay, you gotta fill that?
No, he just gave it to me. I asked the check. So, I just didn't
I don't know.
Yeah,
Did you want to
Get a president's citation? Which one of y'all got the president's citation?
No.
no. Oh, thank you very much.
Do, not to know about it?
Yeah.
It's kind of hard to bring it up to the members. So
I know.
I was just asking.
And then the other thing is we have this report form for now. I can't even read this, but anyway, it's about membership service. It's like, what do we have a nail bank? Do we have a nail bank? But how many guests are invited? You're supposed to do this to get members.
Well, hi, Wayne. How you doing? Come on over and have a seat.
Where your thumb goes to something with my wife.
Oh, that's okay. Yeah.
And after that, you have.
Tell them to ask him if they saw the video I did.
Oh, is that right?
Oh, I tell you what, it turned out really well.
Club tracking.
Everything, the church service went beautifully. I've had a lot of compliments from people.
Any other questions for the
I
candidate?
think these are all things that she should
Can you just hand it to
handle.
her, please?
Actually, it's not going to take your check, but it's the wrong kind of.
Bucket's right
It's a
here.
what?
It's the wrong kind of check. That's what she said. So.
It's the wrong kind of check.
Well, it's the wrong. I don't know what the hell.
Oh, no, that's not a check. That's a,
Yeah, that's what I'm pointing out.
that's a receipt. Like,
Yeah. Does that name mean anything?
Frank Duvenek? Yeah. He's the artist. He's the artist from here in Covington. Frank Duvenek did a lot of,
Yeah.
yeah.
The guy just told me about that last week.
Oh, yeah.
I heard in the
Has
news.
everybody donated to pay for the speakers and the camera
I
guy?
get the
Did I
check.
put $1 or $2 in?
Okay.
$2.
I think I put $1 in there, didn't I?
Ladies and gentlemen, we're gonna truncate our lunchtime, because we have two speakers today. Will Ann, who is going to answer some questions and have about a 1 or 2 minute wrap up of her presentation. Please, Will Ann.
Okay, got several questions about the school choice, so I'll start with that. And one of them was asked how private schools are supposed to provide the services you mentioned if they're entirely privately funded. Private schools now, if you have a child that requires speech therapy or occupational therapy that is allowed to go to your private school, they can receive speech therapy, occupational therapy, so forth, fully funded through the local private school. That's already in place. So that was one question. And then asked me, do I support school choice? I do support school choice in that we all have a choice of where we send our children to go to school. Even within the public schools, you have the opportunity to send your children to other public schools in the area. There's a wonderful school that's in Boone County. It's in Boone County, but it accepts students from all over northern Kentucky, called the Ignite Institute, which has basically some college level education and courses under different areas of study, and it's a fabulous program. I just went and helped deliver a scholarship to a young lady that just graduated from there, who's gone through their design aspect. I have another close friend who sends her son there for engineering, so that choice is available. And you can also go to different schools within your public school setting. That's always been a choice. Or you can send your children to private school. As I said, one of my children did go to private school. What I don't support is taking money from the public funds to support that. And I will give you just an observation to explain that. Over in Ohio, they've already done school choice. There was a rather small school district in Ohio, had about 5,000 students. They instituted school vouchers in that area. I believe they had about 5,000 students in this school district. And when they gave the school choice, they had 170 something of these students that took advantage of that and took their public school voucher and went to the private school. 3 of them were children that had been previously attending the public school. The other 160 something of them had already been attending private school. They were already paying that, now they just had a discounted amount that they went to it. But because they gave those, there was, not 170, excuse me, it was 1,700 students in that school district. 5,000 kids attending public school in that district, 1,700 were already attending private school. They all collected their voucher. 3 kids left the public school. $3,000 apiece with all these kids. They lost $5 million in their school district's budget. They were educating 3 less children. $5 million. It decimates the public schools. It decimates the public schools. Now you might ask, why didn't the rest of those children take that school choice voucher? Why did only 3 people leave the public school to go to the private school? Because that voucher gave them $3,000 off. The average tuition in northern Kentucky for an elementary school, private elementary school, is between, I think St. Tim's out in Boone County may be one of the most inexpensive for elementary. It's like $4,000 a year. It goes up to almost $9,000 or $10,000 from some other schools in this area. That's for elementary school. It's more expensive for high schools. The cheapest high school in this area may be around $9,000. So if you don't have that other $1,000 per child, $3,000 per child, $6,000 per child, you're not taking your child out of the public school to going. What you're left with is what the money's gone from where your child went to school, and they're left with a seriously depleted school system. And there's a very little net gain in terms of who's going to private school. So, I would rather take that money and invest it in our schools, which we have a school system that is statewide. It is underfunded, flat out. And Republicans in the state legislature just defeated Governor Beshear's attempt to raise pay, raise funding, and raise retirement benefits for public schools. So we're already underfunding it. If you make it worse. And also, private schools are not required to meet the same standards. I told you, I worked in private school and I worked in public school. Private schools set their own standards of who they hire as teachers. They don't necessarily have to have education degrees. They don't necessarily have to follow any state-approved curriculum, or they don't really have to follow any curriculum, but they're whatever they're happy with at that particular school. So there's no standardization across the board. So I'm not in favor of that. And then somebody asked about how can we afford to pay for retirees' health care? It's always a problem, always a problem. But I will tell you that cutting Medicaid and Medicare is not going to help that. And that's also on the table right now in Kentucky. So it's always a problem. I'm a recent retiree myself, and figuring out that healthcare stuff is a challenge for everybody. And having those programs cut for people is not something I'm in favor of. So I think that, one last question, do I know who this came from? This has to be from Mr. John Stevenson. It says, are you ready? Yes, I am. I tell people I have a very difficult first name to remember. My name is Will Ann, and I've been called everything under the book over the course of my years. But I keep telling people, remember this, Will Ann Will. I'm ready, I'm able, and I'm willing. Will Ann Will. So thank you very much.
I'm going to keep the question in mind.
Okay.
If you want to do a minute or two right now. You want to give your website information?
Well, I can do that. I will, my website is my name, and I will say it's very difficult to remember, but it is WILANNESTANGEL.com, willanstangel.com, and you can find information about me there. And if you are somebody that follows Facebook, you can look for me on Facebook at Willanne, WILANNE, the number 4KY. So, thank you.
Land, everybody's mind has been enriched a little bit. Our next speaker is Ellie Platt. And Ellie is here to speak about Amendments 1 and 2. She is a passionate advocate of educational opportunities for all of Kentucky students. She is a product of both public and private schools. She attended the University of Kentucky and has been involved with politics on the local, state, and federal levels. I would like to now introduce Ms. Ellie.
I get all the Pyatt, flat, all the things. So, yes, as he said, my name is Ellie Pyatt. It's such a joy to be here with you all today. Thank you so much for having me. I was born in northern Kentucky, but grew up in northwest Indiana. And when I lived there, I had actually attended public schools. And when I moved back to Kentucky, had the opportunity to attend Notre Dame Academy, which was one of the greatest 4 years of my life. And then went to the University of Kentucky and had several different scholarships there that the state was able to fund for me, using public dollars to attend and choose whatever state school that I wanted to go to. So with a lot of that being said, since graduating from UK, I started working in politics and had some different government experience, and now work here in Northern Kentucky and do some state political campaign things, which is always very fun. But where that brings me today is that I have been working on the school choice amendment, is what people say it as, but it's Amendment 2. I'm happy to talk about both Amendment 1 and Amendment 2. So Election Day this year on November 5th, early voting starting a couple days before, and obviously always the absentee ballots and things. But this year, in addition to our presidential election, our congressional elections, and our state and local elections, we also have 2 constitutional amendments on the ballot. So we also had several about 2 years ago, and so we have that again today. So it'll be the last thing that you see on your ballot, but there will be 2 of them. The first one is what is being coined as the Non-Citizen Voting Act Amendment. So currently in Kentucky statute, it is illegal for a non-citizen to vote in the state, but that is not ingrained in our Constitution as a constitutional protection, as it is in many other states. So our state General Assembly wanted to make sure that that was something that was protected in the Constitution, to make sure that we have citizens of Kentucky, only citizens of Kentucky voting in our Kentucky elections. So that is Amendment 1. And Amendment 2 is what I'll go into great length about, and Will Ann spoke on briefly, is really focuses on educational opportunities throughout our state, school choice. The opposition has coined it as the voucher amendment, but as I'll read in a couple of moments, there is actually no word voucher in the amendment that you'll see on your ballot. So I'll start by reading what the ballot language is. That way, and I have these flyers, that way you all know and are prepared when you go to vote, early voting or election day, whatever that may be, you know what you're getting into when you get into the ballot, get in to fill out your ballot. So the question itself states, to give parents choices and educational opportunities for their children, are you in favor of enabling the General Assembly to provide financial support for the education costs of students in kindergarten through 12th grade who are outside the system of common schools by amending the Constitution of Kentucky as stated below? It is proposed that a new section be added to the Constitution of Kentucky to read as follows. The General Assembly may provide financial support for the education of students outside the system of common schools. The General Assembly may exercise this authority by law, sections 59, 60, 171, 183, 184, 186, and 189 of this Constitution notwithstanding. So a couple things that I want to note is that this specifically question states educational opportunities for Kentucky children. You don't see voucher, you don't see tax credit, you don't see educational student accounts, you don't see any sort of program instituted with this language. So should this amendment pass with a yes vote on the ballot in November, there will be no sort of program that is instituted in Kentucky. So what exists in Ohio, what exists in Indiana, what actually exists in 48 states in the United States, 48 out of the 50 states, will not happen overnight in Kentucky. We won't have vouchers, we won't have tax credits, we won't have any sort of program. This amendment simply allows the General Assembly in Frankfort to have a conversation about what do we want that to look like for our state, for our students, and here in Kentucky. So again, there is no direct program instituted by this, so all of the fears that money is going to get taken away from schools, that vouchers are going to go into place, all of these things will not happen November 6th. They will not happen even January 1st. Chances are they won't happen at all, and that will be because the concerned citizens and voters of Kentucky will be able to, 1, vote on election day and exercise share their voice, but then 2, talk to their elected officials and say, what do we want this educational opportunities in Kentucky to look like? Do we want that to be money that follows the student where they want to go? So as our education is structured here in Kentucky, we have SEEK funding. That's about $4,000 of what the General Assembly applies to each student in Kentucky. And the rest of the money, which each student gets money from the local level through property taxes and other taxes that you all pay, and then also through federal funds. So in total, it costs about $20,000 to educate a student in the state of Kentucky. And 4,000 of that comes from the SEEK funding at the state level. Now, we've talked about non-public schools and how much it costs and to educate or send your child to a non-public school. That can range from anywhere from $4,000 to high school is about $10,000 in Kentucky right now, at least here in northern Kentucky. But on the state, sending a high school student to a public school here would cost $20,000 between all of the funds that go for that. And 4,000 of that comes from the state. So that's just to give you a perspective on what the funding structure is. But the non-public schools are able to educate a student for $4,000 compared to $20,000. And their resources and everything are spread much more thinly because they don't receive all of the funding from the state level and all the other grants from the Kentucky Department of Education, et cetera, et cetera. So that just kind of gives a brief overview of what the funding in Kentucky currently looks like. Now, I do want to add and preface with this some of the things that we do know. We know that the Kentucky Constitution has not been updated in regards to education since 1891. Now, I don't even know if there was sliced bread in 1891. I don't know if any of you all know that, but there were no computers, no tablets. Really, education looked like a one-room schoolhouse, and education looked very, very, very different than it did today. And it had very different needs of the students. The students had very different needs then than they do now. All the different opportunities that are open to students. Keeping our constitutional language in the same framework that it is now only holds them back and keeps them in that same common school, one-room schoolhouse framework. So I want to make sure we know that. The other thing that we do know, and everybody in this room knows, is that Kentucky has a great education system. Our teachers work tirelessly day in and day out to make sure that their students find success, whatever that looks like. Teachers work overtime. They don't get paid. They spend extra time tutoring. They are working tirelessly. My mom's a lifelong teacher, and seeing that from the perspective as a daughter and all the things she had to sacrifice for the sake of our family because she loved her students so much and wanted them to succeed, there is no discrediting towards that. And our Kentucky teachers and our Kentucky education system does a fantastic job. Now, is that to say that they deserve to be paid more and they deserve more resources and deserve better benefits? Absolutely. Again, I've seen the sacrifices that my mom had to make as a teacher to raise my siblings and I, and not be able to go to my soccer game because one of her students needed some extra help, or one of her students didn't have somebody that could pick them up after school, and she had to stay and make that work. And teachers do that day in and day out. The curriculums that's in place, again, my point here, Kentucky schools are really great, and they serve the needs of students really well. But they don't serve the needs of every single student the best. There are students who get pushed aside sometimes at schools, who are bullied by their peers, who aren't being able to reach their best potential because resources might not be available to them. We want to make sure that these students have the opportunity to succeed in the environment that best fits for them. A public school might not always be the answer. Again, I'm a product of public schools. When I grew up in Indiana, my siblings and I went to public school because there wasn't another non-public option that my parents felt would suit our needs the best, would challenge us the way that we needed. So we were sent to public school, and it was great, and I received great grades and found so much success. But when we moved here, my parents deemed that the best option for me and my success moving forward would be to send me to a non-public school. And thankfully, they were able to have that choice financially, but not every student and family is able to have that choice on their own. So again, that's just to say our Kentucky schools are great. They're serving the majority of students really, really well, but there are students who just aren't succeeding or finding success in those schools and aren't living up to their best potential. And so with that to say, who's the person who knows what the child's maximum potential is? And that's the parent. That's the person who's spending the majority of their time with them, the person who's at home. And they should be able to make that choice of where they want to send their child to school, whether it be their values, whether they feel like their child is best suited to go work in a specific trade. They can make that choice to send them to a high school targeted towards the medical field, or a high school targeted towards any other sort of work field, or again, even send them to a school where they're able to live out their faith or practice their values, and they should be able to have that choice to help their child succeed. That's it. So kind of talked about what Amendment 2 is, what the language is, how we've gotten here. So our state legislature has passed school choice laws in the past, and these have been deemed unconstitutional per our judicial system. And so other states have been able to pass school choice legislation and not have a problem, but because this common schools language exists in our Constitution, our legislation is limited in what we can or cannot do, or what opportunities we can provide to our students. So the only solution is to pass this amendment, that if we want to have any school choice options in Kentucky, this is the gateway to getting there. This is what that might look like. So again, this amendment only allows for that conversation to be had and continue the conversation of legally, per the Constitution, what that amendment or what those changes might look like. People say that when you institute a school choice program in a state, that it takes money and funding away from a public school. I can say that, and that it will totally defund public schools, and I can tell you for a fact that that just will not happen in Kentucky, and that is in the Constitution. In this amendment, it says the General Assembly may exercise this authority, and it lists these sections. And Section 183 of the Constitution, notwithstanding, is not withstood in this amendment. Section 183 of the Constitution says that the General Assembly must provide efficient funds for public schools in Kentucky. So that is still very much so protected within this amendment. So when you hear that this will defund public schools, it will not. Our public schools will still be funded efficiently, and that is up to the local legislators and the local community to figure that out, what those efficient funds might mean and what it needs for that school to best succeed. And so, yeah, is there more funding that the General Assembly can give to some of our schools? Yes, but will that funding be taken away by passing this amendment? No, it will not, because the General Assembly is still required by law, by our Kentucky Constitution, to provide efficient funds to our Kentucky schools. So that's definitely something important to remember as well. And I'll just finish it out with this story again. My mom was a lifelong teacher, and I lived in Northwest Indiana, and when we lived there, my mom growing up, I think I was in about 4th grade, and had learned, or just remember hearing that this scary school choice laws just passed in Kentucky, and the teachers' unions that my mom was a part of because of the benefits that she received from it, were encouraging them all to email their legislators, advocate no for any of these things to pass. Ultimately, school choice passed in Indiana, and Indiana has one of the largest school choice programs, and they're very successful now, but that was 15 years ago at this point. And I say that to say my mom was in public schools as a teacher, and I was a student in public schools as a student, and my mom never saw students leave her classroom. She never saw funding leave her classroom. She never saw a decrease in her salary. She never saw lost resources when all of that was passed 15 years ago. Now we look to today, and students are still succeeding well in Indiana public schools. Some students have the opportunity in Indiana to be able to go to a non-public school and receive the funding for that from the taxes that their parents are paying for them. But I say that to say schools didn't shut down, students didn't leave their schools at an alarming rate. Schools still succeeded and found success, and if anything, my mom was challenged to live up to a higher expectation as a teacher because of the fear that might happen, the competition that might happen. We talked about economics. This is an economic thing. Competition brings in success for businesses, and it would bring in success for our schools especially. So something that we see, especially in every single state surrounding Kentucky, is that public school teachers are paid significantly more than our Kentucky school teachers. And again, our Kentucky teachers deserve to be paid more. Nobody is disregarding that. So what we see as a commonality between all these other states that have school choice is that their teachers are paid more. So we would see fit that should we have school choice in our state, that our teachers would see an increase in debt as well. So all of these things, happy to answer any questions you all might have. Take a break to do that.
We're going to take a short break,
Yeah.
and we'll write down questions for her, and she'll be right back. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Ms. Hyatt.
Absolutely. Well, again, thank you all for your time. One thing that I failed to mention, and I started this point a bit before, was that school choice still, we've heard this already, school choice does exist in Kentucky. It exists for the wealthy. In two ways it exists. It exists for the wealthy. So if you have the $10,000 to spend on a non-public school, you can. And a lot of people are able to do that, which is great. But there also are a lot of people who don't have $10,000, but they have some portion of it, and they're able to apply for scholarships and have other non-public funds be donated to them, which is why tuition at non-public schools is able to be kept lower than the $20,000 cost at a public school that it is to educate students. The other way it exists in Kentucky is in early childhood education and in post-secondary education. So the state of Kentucky gives subsidies to families and to child care learning centers for the costs of educating children, and then subsidies to families to choose where they want to go for preschool or whatever early childhood experience they want their child to have. So those costs are very wide ranging, but those you're able to send your child to a public early childhood education center or a non-public early childhood education center, and you're able to have that choice on where your child will best succeed. And that's the broad overview of it. There's a lot of nitty-gritty within that, but it exists before the age of kindergarten. Then it also exists after. So like I said before, I'm a graduate of the University of Kentucky and had received KEYS money as a result of my high school grades and education. So I was able to use those public dollars and go to whatever institution in Kentucky that could have been a non-public university like Bellarmine or Thomas More, and use my KEYS money there. But I chose to go to the University of Kentucky, and I was able to use it at the state public university. And it also exists in the fact that I did the Governor Scholar Program and was able to receive a significant scholarship from that. And I also could have used that scholarship at a non-public school. There's also Pell Grants and other tuition assistance that comes from the federal and state level to students so that they can choose where they want to go to university and how much they want to pay for that. And those opportunities are open to them because of the resources the state is able to give them for that education. So school choice exists before K through 12 and after K through 12, but it's that middle K through 12 where those students are getting left behind and not being able to succeed in the learning environment that is best suited for them. The other thing that I will add is people say that non-public schools don't have the resources to be able to serve students with disabilities or any sort of learning deficiency. They currently don't have the resources to do that because they receive no funding from the state to do so. They would welcome, and they have, and I've seen that as my mom being a principal at a non-public school, they are 100% willing to welcome any student into their school that needs the learning environment that is best suited for them. They just unfortunately don't have the financial resources to be able to provide that extra reading specialist or that extra behavioral specialist that is available at a public school that is funded by state resources. So they would be able to have those resources should an opportunity be available from state funding opportunities from the state. And that could be something in partnership with the coalition of non-public schools, et cetera, et cetera. So looking at some of these questions, well, somebody had asked what the current tuition at Notre Dame Academy is. I do not know that exact answer, but I think it's around that 9,000 to 10,000 range.
I think it's closer to 12,000.
Which that must have increased. I mean, you all see that every day, the cost of rise of inflation, education costs are increasing, so how do we keep up with that? One thing I will say is that a non-public school like Notre Dame Academy or Villa Madonna, they have work-study programs that parents who feel that that school is the best choice for their child can come and work after school hours outside of their job, outside of attending sports to be able to subsidize that cost. One thing you'll hear people say is these rich, fancy private schools, they're not rich, fancy private schools. Now, there are your country day schools that are rich and fancy, but they still have to provide tissues, and they still have to provide all their own school supplies, and they still have to, they don't even have janitorial services at a lot of these schools. And so it's up to the parents to take ownership of their education, of the investment that they're making. So those costs, I'm sure, would be much higher, but because they're able to invest in their time at that school, they're able to decrease that cost of tuition. Somebody had asked, do you support some sort of funding for existing private school students? So that's exactly the essence of what this amendment would do, is that it would provide funding for all Kentucky students, regardless of your zip code, regardless of your background, regardless of your race, regardless of your religion. It would provide them the opportunity to attend any school outside of the common school, public school system. So yes, I would encourage everybody to vote yes on this amendment, and I would encourage the General Assembly to encourage everybody to vote yes on this amendment, to have that conversation of what that looks like, and hope to be in those conversations as a concerned constituent, and hopefully one day a mother who would be able to have choices of where I want to send my children to school, and this would allow me one day down the road to be able to do that. Somebody had asked, the General Assembly already funds public schools with insufficient funds. How will they fund all schools sufficiently? So that is, the General Assembly has prioritized the need for funding schools, and they have continued to have that conversation. School funding has increased exponentially over the past 10 to 15 years and then some. So that, I know this past session was a budget session, and they increased the SEEK funding there already. And that conversation is ongoing. So it's up to our legislators to be continually engaging with them on our school funding, and also talking to your local elected officials on what those local tax structures look like to fund schools, because a lot of that funding comes from, again, your local property tax dollars, and then even federally, we get a lot of federal funding for our schools. So schools, it's not cheap to run a school. It takes a lot. It takes a village. It takes several resources, and that comes from all different ways. So that's in the hands of us to take ownership and take initiative and be a part of those conversations, to be able to figure out what that funding is for all schools. What this does is this allows the child to best succeed, and it allows the child to best succeed regardless of their background, race, religion, income, anything, and it allows that money to follow that student and allow them to be in an environment that best works for them. I think the last one was also John. It says, are you ready? Yeah, there is quite the coalition of people who are on both sides of this amendment, but on supporting this amendment, we are definitely ready, and we hope that people in the Commonwealth will see the benefit that this can have for Kentucky students, while also seeing just see the benefit that this will have for Kentucky students, and the benefit that can come from it for years to come. Again, if we do not pass this year, there will never be any opportunities for Kentucky students to be in an environment that best suits them. They will be forced to go to school in the zip code that they live in, and that's just not what works best for every student. So hope that you can vote yes and join us in this, and we'll go from there come November 6th. So thank you all again.
The Optimist Club of Covington. We are now going to make a presentation to our speakers today of our Optimist Oak that you see displayed behind me. And it's in a very nice frame, imported from wood from Dollar Tree. I would like to introduce Janine Bell Smith, who's going to make the presentation.
Ellie, let's get you up first.
We're going to take some pictures.
We take some pictures here. We're gonna have I want the picture taken.
Yes, Janine, you can get in there, and Betty, you need to get in there. Give it any, don't see that, yes. I'll take a picture. I'll take a quick
We're gonna take two pictures, one with Janine's phone and one with my phone on the count of three. 1, 2, 3. Okay, one more try here. Okay, that one more.
One more.
Okay. Okay, here we go. On the count of three. 1, 2, 3. And 1, 2, 3. Okay. All right, ready? Set, go. 1, 2, 3. Okay. This is her phone. Okay, count 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. This is my phone. On the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. All right.
We gotta get that program.
Well, there used to be a firm that had there used to be a guy who's totally unrelated to
Denny.
So just one of those.
I'm a school choice person.
The state's obligated to fund every child's education.
When those kids went on 5 years old, the state stole their money.
You're on television. What a fun thing to do. Reminds me of the days when I was running for Simon Kenton High School. Running track, cross country. There comes some more. Soon to be to Sparrow and Newton's barber shop here. Fort Wright, Kentucky. New Dunkin' Donuts here. Right here, Town Power Plaza, Fort Wright, Kentucky. Todd Newton and Daryl Newton. Harry Sparrow's retired. Right here by the famous Fort Wright restaurant. Dine in or carry out. Great place. Howdy, boys. There's one of the motorcycles right there. Howdy, boys. And here we have Daisy and Amy. Daisy and Amy. You are so beautiful to me. You are so beautiful to me. Can't you see? You're everything we hope for. You're everything we love today. You are so beautiful to God. It's a beautiful little puppy. Nice to be here with you. Now you can see this on YouTube and Facebook now. Saying hello to that little one, and his name is? Daisy. And your name is? Amy. Two beautiful, beautiful human beings. God bless you. And that's your mom, huh? Well, praise the Lord for moms. Praise the Lord for moms.
What are we doing, buddy? What kind of haircut are we doing?
Short.
You gonna get shorter?
Yeah, I sent a picture.
Now, is that your brother up there? Oh, he's a different gentleman. He's got a big, beautiful head of hair, too. What's your name, sir?
Ryan.
Ryan? Nice to meet you.
Big and beautiful.
Now, I know who this fella is right here. He keeps me out of trouble.
No, I got a full-time job.
Oh, you got a full-time job? You don't need another full-time job, do you?